Right guys, welcome to the final thoughts of my trip through Mongolia. I've just come home from 7 days travelling from the capital of Ulaanbaatar down to the south towards the Gobi Desert and then towards the east, which was the site of, or the headquarters of the world's largest empire, Karakoram. So now I'm just going to go through, I've got a couple of points here in front of me, just going to go through each of them 5-10 minutes as quickly as I can. So yeah, let's crack on. So food and drink, not everyone know this, but Mongolia is actually known for their delicious food, believe it or not. And it's a very strange because it's sandwiched in between a country like China, which is, you know, noodles and spices, almost sweet and sour at times as well, although the different regions will be very, very different. And then you obviously get Russia to the north, so it's kind of like a hybrid of the two of them. So Mongolians actually eat a lot of noodles, similar to Tibet, and a lot of soups as well, and tea, of course. That whole entire region of Asia drinks tea at every opportunity. So I really like the food. Yak is obviously a popular meat, as well as lamb, because obviously we actually sacrificed that. I'm not sure if you've seen the video, but we sacrificed the lamb when we're staying with the local nomads. So yeah, pretty good food. I would say it's probably not one of my favorites. I would probably have to give Tibet that nod. So I would have to say the food was probably about 6.5 to 7. It was actually kind of hard to find a restaurant sometimes in the capital. So if I wasn't with my guide, I probably would have struggled there. But I'd have to say Tibet, much better, but certainly Mongolia, very decent food. So people, I don't think there's bad people anywhere in this part of Asia, whether you're in Japan, China, Southeast Asia, Tibet, Mongolia, wherever it is full of amazing people. The only thing I would have to say is I don't speak their language, so it's very difficult sometimes to get into a conversation. Same as China, whenever I'm traveling through China. I know I want to have a conversation with people, and you can see other people wanting to have a conversation with you, but they're aware they don't speak English. So it sort of creates boundaries, which is really disappointing, because if you just have that little bit of a conversation or a little bit of a connection, it really helps, and it really makes my sort of experience in travel so much more worthwhile. So I can't comment too much, but on the very few instances where I had a conversation with some locals, or even when I was talking through my guide as a translator, the people were super nice, really good. And as I say, it's just part and parcel of that part of Asia. Tibet or Mongolia? It's slightly unfair. Not sure I like these questions anymore, because it's a little bit unfair. I would have to say, due to my experience with certain locals in Tibet, I would probably have to, and this is just luck, it's just all about luck and being in the right place at the right time. When I get taken for lunch and somebody bought me a hat, I just felt like, well, obviously I felt as if I didn't deserve how they were treating me for a start. And I think maybe Mongolians are a little bit more, not standoffish, maybe a little bit more shy and a little bit more quieter, similar to, I suppose, maybe Chinese. And also the food as well. I really preferred the food in Tibet. But Mongolia, I was going to say the landscape, but the landscape in Tibet, that's like the middle of the Himalayas. Mongolia, I'd have to say, it's pretty special too. It's unfair to choose one or the other. Which accommodation was the best? The more I travel, the more I actually really like the experience of staying with locals. So I like staying in the yurts, or the gyrs as they're called. And I stayed in 2 while I was away. I also stayed in a hotel, the Chinggis Khan Hotel, which was good because it was called Chinggis Khan. But there's nothing quite like staying in a yurt and then waking up. Like, you're on your own. You've got, fair enough, one was a little bit of a holiday home yurt, and the other one was with a traditional family. And you walk outside, you're in the middle of this, wouldn't say wilderness, but the vast steppe of Eurasia, which goes from obviously Mongolia as far as Ukraine in Europe. And as far as the eye can see, green lush grass. You've got a river in front of you. You're surrounded by the mountains. Absolutely incredible. Would I return? Yeah, probably would like to return, but I'm not sure how much more there is to see, because obviously I've seen Ulaanbaatar. I should probably go north next time. The Gobi Desert's to the south, and then obviously you've got the rest of it's just covered by the grasslands, the wild steppe, which I seen. So there's not an awful lot more to see, but I would like to return, maybe go north, maybe go east towards the Mongolian-Chinese border and see what that's like. That is the area where a lot of the North Korean defectors cross, so it's nice to be able to go there and see how far the defectors have actually had to walk, and then this is the border they cross, so that would be quite interesting. So what if you want to visit? To visit, you don't need a guide. I would recommend, probably, if you want to get really off the beaten path, rent a car, a Jeep, probably would be the best thing. And then just plan your trip, where you want to go, what you want to do. Do you want to go to the Gobi Desert? Make sure your accommodation's organised. Try and stay in some authentic accommodation. You can find them in Google, really, really easy. Local families will also take you up if they have the space. And you'll not be short for stopping off at places for food, petrol or gas, whatever you want to call it. So really, really easy. A little bit difficult if you're from the west to actually get to. I think it took me, where did I have to, I think I had to fly through China, Frankfurt, from Dublin or London or something like that there. So it's quite a trip to get to, but it's quite an adventure when you get there. Safety, zero issues. I didn't see any issues at all. There was not one time where I thought, even walking through at night, the streets are quite empty at night, but I didn't see one time where I thought maybe things were going to be a little bit risky, as opposed to when I come home and I'm walking the streets at night, things could change fairly, fairly quickly. But in Mongolia, absolutely no problems. Pros, obviously the landscape, people, the accommodation, I have to stick that down because it was just fascinating. The food too, photography, great value. The history, obviously with the Mongols and Genghis Khan, the world's biggest empire. Sorry for being a bit of a nerd, but this is so up my street. And it's something I always wanted to see and explore, was Mongolia and see where the Mongols came from. But yeah, so many pros, as with every country, the majority of countries that I visit. So cons, probably not actually that many cons, because the Wi-Fi was good, the signal was good if you get a SIM card, obviously the safety was good, prices, hard to get to. That's about it. Hard, difficult to get to. Not difficult, just time consuming. Regrets. So after every trip, I try and collate like a list of regrets so I can learn from it. There's not going to be many. Maybe not doing a little bit of the country on my own. So there's pros and cons of having a guide. Obviously the pros where I would not have found the nomadic family and stayed there, like in this incredible landscape, one of the best landscapes I've ever seen. It's just like one big field, green, lush, big field with mountains and rivers. So that was one of the pros, obviously. One of the cons is when I like to just go somewhere. If I maybe go to the end of the street and you're driving and you're just like, oh, I'll take a left or a right, you never just know what's going to come up. And that's a good thing, because obviously as well, if you're talking to locals tends to be sometimes a little bit put off if you got maybe a local or a guide beside you. So it's hard for them to open up. So that's why sometimes, and I'm trying to do that more and more now, so I can maybe create that connection so I don't have that obstacle between myself and the local. But in terms of regrets, there's not many other ones I can think about really. So favourite part, must not miss, being a little bit of a war sort of like history nerd, has to be Karakoram, which was the headquarters and the home of the world's largest empire. So obviously there's not that many buildings, it's really, really small compared to most of it's been demolished, but the main sort of heart of it, where you've got the wall and the stupas obviously that line this main area, and the temples within still standing, just to stand and think and to realise who was walking down these various lanes and pathways, who was in these temples, who was in these buildings, Genghis Khan being one of them, is just absolutely fascinating, and it's still there, which is really, really good. So one thing I remember, and I think that's got to be the sacrificing of the lamb with the nomadic family. And I just found that it's obviously not something I'm used to, but it was good to actually see the reality of the process of them obviously getting a meal. And it's fascinating because they use every part of the animal. There's not one, even down to the backbone. They use the backbone of these animals to play games with. I just found that unbelievable. Like, it's just incredibly resourceful. They use you've got the intestines, and they clean it out and fill it with blood. And then obviously even the stomach, where they emptied it because it was obviously full of sort of shit that was being processed through it. And they cleaned it, and what they would do, they would cut it up and put it in like a stew. It's fascinating. And then the dog takes the head. So they obviously leave the bits and pieces maybe they don't eat, and the dog takes it away and eats the rest of it. I just thought that was absolutely fascinating to see the process and to see actually what people are capable of as well. So rating the country out of 10, I would have to say it's a shame because it would be so much higher if I could speak the language, which is really, really unfair. I would have to say I'm going to go for a solid 7. So rated out of 171, I would have to say probably top 25, maybe 25. I think that would be maybe fair. Again, I've spent so much more time in other countries, so if I spent longer here, Ulaanbaatar, unfortunately there's not a lot going for it, which probably drags it down a little bit. So let's say 30 out of 171. For this country, obviously the series is still going, so next we'll be going back to another country which I'll have now been 3 times, and I just visited 2 months ago. And of course we'll be trying plenty of noodles and spicy stuff. It's actually a place where I eat mouse, so join us for the next episode in China.